So I'm going to have a really big hot take here from a business perspective. Now, I am not speaking just as a gamer or as a software development engineer, but as somebody who has a casual interest in business. Palworld is the best Pokemon game I have ever seen. Now, to be clear, Palworld is obviously not related to the Nintendo franchise at all. It's got its own thing. It's sold over 6 million copies in just a few days. It has nothing to do with the Nintendo franchise. It did that on its own. It's completely different. It's an unrelated thing, not owned by Nintendo. And, the Nintendo that got it start making cards and for games in like the 1800s has nothing to do with this game. This game is actually more like Minecraft and Fallout and Valheim and Ark Survival Evolved. In fact, I would characterize it as a higher resolution, adventure-themed Minecraft with anime-themed tames of this, from like Ark Survival Evolved, with like some Fallout elements like guns and things. And it's very clear if you play the game that this is not a Pokemon game, and that it is in fact something that has its own history from these other games and these other genres. But it's still a pretty hot take from a business perspective. It shows that when a brand thinks it has a lock on a style of gameplay or a genre of games, and it just consistently refuses to give customers what they want in terms of like an open world style game, they're going to get their lunch eaten by somebody who's willing to provide that. And that's exactly what's happened here. This is a complete wake-up call for Pokemon as a company, because they realize, look, they will try to protect their IP. They will sue. They will probably sue Palworld at some point. They're probably looking for a way to do that right now. But the fact is, there's so much prior evidence in so many other games that they can point to and say, look, we got this from that other game, or we got that from that other game, that it doesn't really matter. At this point, it's just anime-themed games. And so, like, from my perspective, the big issue is this is evidence that when a company decides that they are going to refuse to give their customers what they want because they want to live in their own little world, have their own little design session, whatever, that eventually the people are going to say, F it, we're going to compete with you because you're not giving the customer what they want. And so, like, I understand that there's haters out there that don't like Palworld, okay? I happen to know several people that are just clinically obsessed with Pokemon. And they are not happy right now. They just don't like Palworld. They've never played it. They refuse to play it, but they don't like it, which I don't believe is data-driven. That's a separate thing. But you have to understand is that this company came out of nowhere, not knowing what the heck they were doing, and they said, hey, we just want to build something that's fun for people, and we want to give people what they want. And so, as a result of that, I can't help but think from a business perspective that there was an opportunity that they exploited to be able to make, what was it, 6 million times 30? That's, that's a fair chunk of change. So, when you really think about it, let's just say that Valve is taking, half that. They're probably taking 30%, whatever. I mean, there's still a nice big chunk of change there. And the market opportunity that exists because, quite frankly, Pokemon as a company failed for customers. Okay, people have been asking for open world stuff from Pokemon forever. Instead, we got Pokemon Go. Okay, you gave the people at Pokemon gave the people who are asking for an open world Pokemon a integration with Google Maps that forced them to get out of their house and travel around their city. Yeah, because I'm going to go to the ghetto to go capture a hazy. Really? Yeah, I'm going to go into the center of Detroit because I want to capture a Bulbasaur. No, man. That just ain't going to work for me. Look at me. They know I don't. They know I don't. No, no. Look at me. They know I don't belong there. And so, like, I'm not from that area, and they know that. They don't know me. So, let's face it. Like, from my perspective, this is kind of a wake-up call from, for the Pokemon Company. This is, I mean, I tried to play Pokemon Go, okay? And like, I was literally I was working at, I believe it was Starbucks at the time, because I was working in corporate, and I was helping ship the mobile order and pay stuff. And I remember there was I think it was Hazy. The I don't remember. Haze? Yeah, maybe? I don't know. It was, I don't remember. It was a yellow one that had a history of coming out at night and stealing people away. And they were always in the parking lot when I got off work. And it was kind of sus, honestly, because they loved that parking lot, and I don't know why. But when you really get down to it, I think what's going to happen with this is it's going to be a wake-up call for a lot of the leadership at Nintendo and Pokemon. To say, look, we have competition now. People are, they're not scared of our moat anymore. They're willing to attack the gates. And so they need to understand that they, as a company, they have a very powerful brand. They have a very respected brand. And they have a brand that many people love. But they're not using it in the way that customers and fans want. And so, when you really think about that, the mere existence of the game on my screen, it doesn't matter what happens in the future, if they get sued or not, what happens after that. Hey, maybe Pokemon ends up owning Palworld in a buyout. We don't know, right? But the fact that it exists, the fact that this art exists on my screen, itself proves that Pokemon as a franchise is not immortal. Okay. It's not going to be around forever. Okay? Because what you have to understand is that Pokemon as a franchise, as a system, as an idea, has already entered humanity's collective consciousness enough that whether it's in 20, 50, or even 100 years, these kind of games will be common, and they will not be owned by one company. Furthermore, it will probably become part of the lore of humanity that this existed, and at that point, nobody will actually own the idea. Because remember, intellectual property law and everything else exists to create a window of time for companies to be able to say that they own something. But they can't own things in perpetuity. And so the idea here is that this is the, horde at the gate, knock, knock, knock. Hey, we're out here. We want to take your shit. And that's exactly what's happening from the Pokemon leadership's perspective, right? Because this is going to cut into their business. They're probably getting a lot of questions about this. They're probably getting a lot of people contacting them and asking them to sue them or saying, hey, these people are stealing your shit, whatever. Whether it's supportive or not doesn't matter. They're probably spending a lot of time on this. And so what you have to understand is that not only is this distracting them from their core business and forcing them outside of their little world and their little echo chamber, but it's actively showing, look, other teams have the technical capability to do what we do. Other teams have the capability to create stuff now. Oh no, what are we going to do? And so when you really, really get down to it, one of the issues that you need to understand about this is that when it comes to providing customer value, you should be giving people what they want. And Nintendo has failed to do that. That's why this existed. Like, if somebody had,
an open world Pokemon thing without guns, without some of the other elements that are in this game to play. Do you really think they would have gotten bored enough to get together and actually build out a team to do this? Do you think that the moat would have existed just big enough to be able to say, look, we don't need to worry about that. That's locked down too much. The company's too big. There is already something out there that kind of gives us the 80% of what we want. Let's not go there. But because there was such a huge gap in the marketplace, because there was such a huge lack of what people have asked for consistently, an open MMO, open world style Pokemon game, something like this that, quite frankly, doesn't exist because, let's face it, the Pokemon Go doesn't count. The fact is, that's what it comes down to, and so when you really get down to it, it comes down to customer value from a complete perspective of actually understanding the fact that Nintendo has more than enough resources to have given people basically this, right? They could have just been like, oh yeah, I got some pocket change, let's just go throw that in the market out. They could have done that. They could have just quickly signed a quick deal with themselves, started an LLC, started out a game studio, given it 5, 15 developers, whatever, and it would have been pocket change to them. And it would have been official, branded, everything. In fact, I may still do that. Maybe they'll compete by doing that. Maybe they'll say, look fine, we're going to compete with Palworld. We're going to have Pokemon World. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know. I'm not part of their situation, so I don't know. But if I was an owner of Pokemon, if I was part of the leadership, I would look at this as a pure competitive threat, and I would go to war. Not from a legal perspective, because let's face it, you're going to lose that battle, and they're still going to exist no matter what you do, and you're going to ruin your reputation already and really piss off gamers who like this if you try that. But what I would do instead is I would outcompete them in the market. I would do exactly what I just said. I would say, hey, okay, we're going to start a game studio. It's going to be owned by our other Pokemon game studio. It's going to have access to all of our IP. Now we're going to have an MMO. We're going to have a single player mode, and we're going to have realms like in Minecraft. And we are going to just outcompete this launching next year. We're going to throw the resources at it to get it done. That could happen. I mean, heck, I've been a part of teams that have wanted to build out things like that. I've literally had clients that are like, "Hey, how would I build out a simple MMO? What is the basic architecture?" And I've done that for them. I can do it again. I mean, I've worked on the back end for things like Halo, so I'm not really worried about this. The big issue here is just, are they going to do it? And so, being a Japanese company, they need to understand that this is not a situation where they can stand still and wait it out. One of the big things that I've noticed with Nintendo leadership, as an outsider and as somebody who has not worked for Nintendo ever, despite them contacting me a couple times, is that they are very anti-movement. Like, they don't want to act. They're very conservative. And I'm really, 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 really hoping that this forces them to loosen the katana and see what happens. Because, and I'm going to use some euphemisms here, if the falling cherry blossoms don't land on their sword, they will have failed. And so I think one of the things that you have to understand here is that this is an amazing opportunity for the Pokemon brand. It does not need to be perceived as an outright attack against them, although it is technically the case. The fact is, they have the capability to do what they want to do, and they could literally give Pikachu a katana and have him guard your base if that's what they wanted, but they have chosen not to do that, and that is why this game exists. Imagine what would happen if actual Pokemon licensed franchises just went out and said, okay, fine, I want to play this game a little bit. I want to go play this Palworld thing a bit. Huh, it's got some good ideas. Let's clone it. Imagine that. Imagine that. Okay? I mean, give me Jesse and James as the, protagonists up to like the mid part of the game. Then maybe have them join your team. There's so many things that you could literally do with the real stuff. And it's just it's hazy. It was a hazy, I think it was. I'm looking because I want to know what the heck this Pokemon was. I could probably log into Pokemon Go, but I don't even think I have my login. I don't even think I have a login anymore. Like, I used to play it for a little bit, but then I just stopped logging in. And this is great. Pokemon Go Pokédex. I think that's what I'll go here. I don't want to go. Yeah, Pokemon Go complete Pokédex. There you go. And I just here it is. That's right. Gosh, this is killing me because I don't remember the dang name. And that's another thing too. Like, when somebody that grew up with Pokemon can't remember one of the basic Pokemons anymore, that is about the brand Hypno. That's what it was. Hypno. Okay? So, yeah, we had Hypnos in that parking lot all the time. And if you look at the lore for them, it's very dark. And so you have to understand that no, Drowsy. Is it Drowsy or Hypno? This feels right. Yeah, this feels right. This was the one of these two. I think it was because the Hypno evolves. Sorry, the Drowsy evolves to a Hypno in the Pokemon stuff. But yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm having trouble, and I had to go look it up. I mean, think about that. Somebody who grew up, with Pokemon being everywhere, being such a strong brand, and being completely on its own thing. It was unmatched, did not have any competition at all. It was, there was some really bad anime, like Digimon stuff, but it was all out of Japan. It wasn't out of other countries. And it was something that you could easily dismiss if you didn't really care about it. And so this is kind of a big deal. The Pokemon brand has eroded to the point where people just want to do their own stuff now. But they're now influenced by the fact that Pokemon exists. And so in some ways, Pokemon as a brand has absolutely been successful, if only because they've now entered the collective human consciousness and have been a part of human society enough that we can just remix them and riff on them and make, parodies of them and so forth, right? But as a brand that is its own empire, as, if you were to consider the brand its own sovereign state or network actor, it's absolutely failed. It's died, and little branches of it have been cut off and collected by companies that make things like Palworld. And I think that's sad, to be clear. I actually remember the company very fondly, but I think this will be a wake-up call, and I'm hoping that this actually creates a revival of the Pokemon brand. Because what's going to happen is they're going to look at their legal options. They're going to do everything they can to try to sue the crap out of Palworld. They're going to get it pulled, they're going to get it shut down, whatever, right? And if they can't remove it from existence, they'll then try to buy it out. And then if they can't buy it out, well, at that point, they have a competitor.
They have a thing out there that exists that's kind of an, from their perspective, it's an off-brand Pokemon. And they have actual competition. Because there's an entirely new franchise that exists now that can do a lot of the same things they can do. And do a lot of things that they won't do. And so, how do they compete with that? Tell me in the replies.